Got a couple of great community things to tell you about tonight. Another look at an amazing job done by an educator, but we begin with a discussion about Devin. Roll it, Kyle. Devin's Law. It's a recent piece of legislation by our city council that deals with the way property is rented here in East Baton Rouge Parish. And if you remember Cathy Toliver, Devin's grandmother, dear friend, was here with us to talk about that and give us an update on how he's doing. But this week with us is attorney Michael Adams. Most of you know him for his work here in the community and obviously his leadership and work with the 100 Black Men of Greater Baton Rouge. And I want to first ask again how Ty's doing. Just check on her.
One day at a time, one day at a time. We were talking just last night and we were saying that one day is like 1,000 to get over. So it's a painful process, but we're making it.
When we were here before, the law passage was still relatively new. What feedback have you gotten from the community since it's passed?
Lots and lots and lots of feedback. People are calling and saying thank you, because we've been needing the help, we've been needing the support, we've been needing the voice. You know, they didn't know how, but I've been an advocate for youth and in the community for so many years. It just worked out for us that when this happened, I was hitting the streets. So the people are responding tremendously.
It's interesting that out of tragedy, sometimes things like this are born, and the attention that renters will get, the protections they will get born out of this, I think is a positive. That's one of the reasons Mike is here. Michael is representing your family in this case. And I know, Mike, there's details you can't get into about this, obviously, because it's pending litigation. But let's talk about the basis of what you are doing.
Well, Clay, thanks a lot for having us here. And it is a privilege and a pleasure for me to represent this family and to be here. But, you know, that's what we do. We go out and we represent people who, and sometimes there are circumstances that they don't understand, that they don't think that there is a way out of. Devin's Law is an amazing first step on what really needs to happen in not just this community, but other communities around this state and around this country. We see a situation where there is a predatory, and I use that term not lightly, a predatory landlord who is taking advantage of people who are uninformed, people who are not great with means, and have to find themselves renting from depressed properties in violent neighborhoods. And so what Devin's Law does is now it forces a landlord to provide you information.
Right.
And one of the things that we looked at was when we took this case on, and we have a claim against the landlord for a lot of things, but their negligent conduct in having tenants live in a place where they know it's a crime-ridden place. And Devin's Law now says in January, if you are a landlord, that you have to give access to that information to your potential tenants. And so you can go on the city's website, on the police department's website, and log in an address, and it'll tell you how many times law enforcement or emergency services has been to that location. And you would be astounded to see the number of times that they were called to this location. So we think that landlords owe a duty and a responsibility to potential tenants to inform them, first of all, and if they wish, let them out of their leases, to not legally hold them in place and threaten them with putting them in the credit bureau or not allowing them to be able to rent from any place else. That's unconscionable.
Yep.
And that's not a good business practice, and we think it is not only morally wrong, but we think that you can be legally responsible for that kind of conduct.
It's what I learned, because you had been here a couple times before to talk about what had happened to your grandson, and you and I talked, and it wasn't until this came up that I learned she had mentioned her concerns about the behavior taking place near where she lived. So she was saying, look, I'm concerned about the safety of my family, and this kind of treatment, the way that she was getting, like Mike said, it's unconscionable. And then the kid was killed.
Yeah, and almost, Chris, and let me jump in, because almost immediately after, not one notice, not two notices, not three notices, but 4 notices that something happened. And so a basic premise under the law is notice and opportunity. Once you're placed on notice, you have to have an opportunity.
Hold your thought. We're going to do another segment talking about this, and Cathy's been listening to us. I want to get her perspective on where we go from here. More Clay Young Show in just a moment. So you heard us talk a lot about where we go from here as it relates to the legal end of this, and you heard Michael talking about why this is important, why he wants to do the work, and why it's necessary. What's your thoughts on that?
It is so necessary. I believe this. Michael, and we appreciate him, is doing the legal side of it. But we're coming around the corner and we're asking people, I was just saying, we're saying help 5 stay alive. And what that is we're asking you to call 5 people, whether you call them on a day or call them at the end of the week. Because I personally believe if someone had called the person who murdered my grandson, who splattered his brains, and checked on his mental status, he probably would not have done that. And we don't show enough care and concern when it comes to checking on people's mental state. There's 70,000 thoughts in a day that our mind is constantly traveling, and it's hard to slow that down. What are you going to do? So if you have a thought, you can build on that thought all day long, and then you find yourself acting on it. I believe that person, whoever did that, whatever his target was, he planned that, but he made a mistake. He hit the wrong house, So we need to reach out to people. We need to check on their mental state. It's so important.
You do a lot of work in the community, particularly with young men, even more specifically young men in the inner city. And, that's one thing we have in common, but a lot of these young men are just looking for a place for something bad to happen. And you just work so hard to try to break that cycle.
And you know what? And that's a good way of describing it. You have to break that cycle. We can't live or continue to live in a city where violence is as prevalent as it is now, and not have just an eruption at some point.
Yep.
Okay, we're losing an entire generation of young black males. But what I found in our work in this community is that we have to start early.
Yeah.
We have to be consistent. You have to learn to listen to these young men. Okay, you have to learn how to spend time with them. And if you listen to them and if you spend time with them, you can then start to impact their lives and change their direction. There needs to be more services and opportunities offered. There are some folks that need to be in jail. So some bad apples out there doing some bad things.
Right.
But there are just a cadre of young people who are looking for an out, and looking for an opportunity. And I stand unabashedly, before many people saying it has to start with black men, guys that look like me and you, who look at those young men and say, there is a different way that you can do this.
Right.
But they won't listen to you and respect you unless you listen to them.
Right.
And you respect who they are.
That's right.
And I think that's where you start at.
Yeah, and I was having this conversation yesterday. I said, you figure you've got a young man in a broken home. Nobody there is holding him accountable since he's a baby. Now he's 15 years old, 6'2", and made out of oak. Right. So when you want to try to correct him, if you don't have that rapport with him, he's not going to listen, and it's going to go sideways. So the other side of this, Mike, is you said it. Yes, there are those that need to be in jail. Absolutely. But then there are some young men who are acting out because they don't know anything else. Right. And if you don't deal with what's breaking them, you'll never be able to arrest your way out of all of it.
Right, and that's the point. The other point I want to make, though, we cannot police our way out of this.
No.
It is, we need good policing. We need great community policing. We need to support law enforcement. I'm dogmatic about good policing. But also, this problem goes beyond that.
Yep.
This problem goes back to the home, the family, and opportunities. And let me say this too, though, is that we have to be able to show that there's a greater power that we all have to be responsive to. And if we don't show young people that there's a greater power out there, that whatever you religiously believe, I'm a Christian and I'm a devout Christian, and I think that when you show a different way, when you show Christ is able to get in some of these young people's lives, you can change their direction. But it has to be organic. It has to start, and over-policing can't do it by itself.
It causes more problems. Cathy, I got about a minute. I do want to ask, if someone has a young man in their home and they're worried about what they're into or what they may do, what advice would you give them?
Oh my goodness, I think Michael said it best, you have to listen to them. Isolation in the home, you're leaving children to go and do their own thing. You're leaving teenagers, you don't know what they're doing, you don't check their cell phones. You need to invade their space. Kids are not allowed, should not be allowed to just do what they want to do in your home. I used to work in the school system, elementary, middle, and high school, and I've witnessed the elementary kids coming to school with filthy clothes. It does start at the home. So pay attention to what they're saying. Listen.
Cathy Toliver, the great Cathy Toliver, and Michael Adams.
The great Michael Adams.
Well, we ain't going that far now. I'm throwing around adjectives and everything. Coming up, we'll introduce you to an education superstar. A lot of them around here, and I love showing them to you. You'll meet her next. So Samantha Johnson is a school leader at collegiate academies here in Baton Rouge, and we bring all these education all-stars through here, and there's a clear purpose behind it. So if you watched the first couple segments, you know what happens when a young person doesn't find his or her destiny or passion, and they end up getting into trouble. And education is actually a way away from that. And so when people choose to work in that profession, we want to highlight them here on the show. So how long have you been with Collegiate?
I've been with Collegiate since 2017. I was a founding teammate.
So I was on a call about this. I have a part of the graduation sash from your graduate, the founders, the first graduating class. What is it like to plant a school in a community?
It's amazing and so impactful. When I think about the class of 2021, I think about so many kids who came to us ready to do something different, really ready to make an impact on their community and take a risk doing something different. A huge part of the reason I came to Baton Rouge was because of the 40% dropout rate for Black males in the city, and all of the kids that came to us are really ready to make a change. So it was a really special experience.
How do you guys facilitate that energy that's on your campus? I remember touring a couple of the schools in New Orleans before the Baton Rouge school was planted, and watching that energy, and then having been out to Collegiate Baton Rouge and seeing the energy there. What's the method? What's the magic?
Yeah, I think it's all about the mission. For us, like, it's to empower all kids to graduate from college and change the world as learners and leaders, and that all part's so important. Any kid who crosses our threshold is our kid, right? They're a kid that we're gonna stick with until the end, through like the bumps and bruises and ups and downs. We're gonna stick with them because we truly believe in all kids. And when you have the privilege of working with a community that believes in all kids, it's like nothing else, like magic happens.
You know, it's interesting. I was having this conversation last week with a colleague, someone who works in education in Shreveport. I said, you know, somebody going into education in the last 10, 15 years isn't going into it with the same expectation as a teacher from years gone by, because you have so much more that you're responsible for as a teacher now.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's totally fair. I think you're going into this work. I think about one of my founding students, Layla, and how she came in and transformed. I think a lot of people think that once kids get to high school, it's too late. You're like, well, they didn't make it in middle and elementary. They're already on this path. But when you sit down with the kid, and I remember I told Layla after she got into like a fight her sophomore year, you're not a bad kid. You made some bad choices, right? But you're not a bad kid. And she was like, what? What do you mean? And I was like, you're not a bad kid. Like, you can still turn this around. And now she's finished her first year at Hines Community College. She's getting ready to graduate and transfer. And if you had asked her then her sophomore year if that was gonna be where she was in 2022, like, she couldn't have seen it. So I think like seeing that in kids is something you have to go with.
So when you think about what's missing in a school environment, obviously you guys see what's working, you've been here, but if you had to pinpoint some things that every school environment has to have in 2022 to be successful, what would those things be?
Yeah, I would say for me, 3 things come to mind. One is belief. Like, you have to believe in the kids in front of you. If you don't, kids feel it right away and you're not gonna get anything done. Believe in them and their limitless potential. A ton of patience, undeniably, and then also just a high academic and behavioral bar, because kids can meet the expectations that we set.
How are y'all able to connect with these young men? We were just talking about that a second ago, and they deserve as much attention as we can give them because of what's happening on the streets of America. How are y'all able to connect?
Yeah, I think like we are a team that sits and listens, right? We don't automatically come in assuming we know all and there's nothing they can teach us. We sit, we listen, we practice patience, we give them opportunities to show us that they've learned, because behavior, just like anything else, is learned. So it's gonna take a lot to unlearn.
I saw in New Orleans that you have a form of restorative justice that you do with, if something happens with a kid in the school, as a community they talk about it so the person who may have made the mistake can understand what he or she did, and then learn from the perspective of the people that they may have done it to or against. Talk a little bit about that. I got about a minute.
Yeah, I think it's all about facing your decision, facing that poor decision you made and learning from it. So for us, it's all about repairing harm. So you make a tough decision, you got to feel how it impacted folks and how they felt about that situation, and then learn how you're going to change moving forward. And I think facing that experience for kids has been so transformational in them changing their behavior.
See, for me, that has such an impact on what they do when they leave your building by learning that behavior at your school. So tell me something fun about Collegiate that people may not know, outside of the fact that Stacy Martin, my dear sister, works with Collegiate. Tell me something great about Collegiate.
Yeah, so many things. But we just had our first inaugural homecoming week last week. We had a parade, we had our homecoming football game. So I think we work really hard, but we also have a ton of spirit in the pod, and our Dolphins are really happy to be there.
#1 in growth here in EBR.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
For how many years in a row?
Every year we've been open.
Every year you've been open. How do you pull that off?
A lot of hard work and belief in kids, a lot of growth, feedback, professional development for our team and for our kids.
Samantha, thank you for what you do for these kids. We need a lot more of it. You guys are always welcome here on the show.
Oh, thank you, Claire.
All right, Family Road of Greater Baton Rouge, a great organization here in town, has got some stuff coming up for you. And one of their great leaders is here. You'll meet her next. Levyette Matthews is with Family Road of Greater Baton Rouge. They've been around a long time and they have helped so many families across our community. In fact, since you've been around, a lot of the babies that you've helped have to be grown-ups by now.
They are, Clay, and it ages me greatly, but it's a wonderful experience to touch a life and then see that life mature and go on.
So on the screen, we've got the flyer for the Healthy Family Fun Day. It's a community health and resource fair that's going to take place next Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you guys do so much work, so tell me about that event.
Well, we're having our Healthy Family Fun Day, which is a great opportunity for the community to come out with their families, enjoy a day of health screenings. We will have vaccinations, we will have fun for the kids, children IDs, and so much more. I mean, free food. And one of the biggest things that we want to do is to be able to give back to the community. And back to school has just happened, but it continues to happen. So we are providing school supplies for our kids in the community.
So quickly, for people who may not have heard about Family Road, I don't know how you may not have, but what is Family Road of Greater Baton Rouge, and particularly the Healthy Start program?
Family Road of Greater Baton Rouge has been around for about 24 years now, and I've been around 15 of those years. So one of the things that we promote is resource and referrals, making sure that we connect families with those community partners and those persons in the community that can fill the gaps pretty much for families needing resources, needing information on education, parenting education. We provide, with our Healthy Start program, we provide prenatal education, case management, fatherhood program. We support our expectant parents, and we want them to do well so that the baby comes out well in an environment that is conducive to raising a wonderful, wonderful family.
So well said. I mean, you do everything from helping people figure out how to put car seats in, which, by the way, some of these car seats ought to come with an engineering degree, but getting them into cars, and then, you know, teaching people how to put their baby down when they're putting them to sleep so nothing bad happens overnight or during the day. I mean, there's a wealth of information that you assume everyone has, but not everyone has access to it or someone around to tell them about it.
Correct. We actually have car seat persons, car seat technicians that actually will help educate you on how to get that car seat, because let me tell you, those instructions and the way that you have to get it, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
I mean, imagine in the middle of the summer, you're frustrated, it's hot, you're trying to get this car seat in, it's just not good. So again, next Saturday, this event is going to be at Family Road. A few things that people can expect there again, tell us.
Well, we will have music, we will have face painting, we will have our children's IDs will be done there, as well as vaccinations, COVID vaccinations, and boosters. One of our sponsors is Metro Health of Greater Baton Rouge, and Metro Health will be giving out $25 gift cards for the first 20 persons who sign up to get their COVID vaccination or their booster. So if that's not an incentive, I don't know what is. I want to sign up for that one. We will also have our Healthy Start persons on hand, our staff there, and what we will be doing is signing pregnant moms up, signing expectant fathers up. We will sign you up on the spot, have you have a thank you gift, and before we complete our enrollment process, you will have a swagged out bag, diaper bag, filled with baby items to go. So,
Levi, we appreciate it. It'll be a great event. Show up. I might want to get those swagged out bags. I don't need the diapers, though. I'm out of that business. Y'all have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week here on The Clay Young Show. Go Tigers, go Jags.